Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar discussing the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. I am Angela Sicoli, 2020 President of New Jersey Realtors, and I hope that you and your families are doing well and staying safe as we navigate this new normal for a while. Today, we are lucky to be joined by Deputy District Director of New Jersey's Small Business, John Blackstock, and the National Association of Realtors Senior Representative of Commercial Policy, Erin Stackley. And right now, I will turn this over to our CEO, Jared Grasso. Thank you, Jared.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. As you know, we've solicited questions from all of the registrants today, and we're going to try to get to every single one of your questions. The good news is that we are recording this so that you can go back and watch it. We're also going to have a downloadable Q&A document that you can use as a reference. I also want to point out one other thing. I know we've all been waiting patiently for the pandemic unemployment assistance. We got that notice late last night. We are working through the process. The good news is that we are scheduling a webinar, a Zoom meeting, for this Friday. It'll be held from 11:30 to 12:30. So that's Friday, April the 17th from 11:30 to 12:30. We're going to have the Commissioner of the Department of Labor, Robert Asaro Angelo, to be available on that webinar to answer all your questions. So the link for that will go out, or the email for that advertising the webinar will go out sometime this afternoon. So I encourage you at the end of this webinar to keep an eye out for that and sign up as soon as we get that link out there. So with that, I will now like to turn it over to NAR's Erin Stackley for an opening statement. Erin?
I think I need to be unmuted.
Nope, we hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh, great. I've done so many of these, you would think it would be old hand by now how to work this particular platform. Thank you all so much for having me on today. I am personally very excited to be hearing from the SBA directly on some of these loan programs. So this is going to be a learning experience for me as well. So thank you for the invitation. So I'm just going to talk about really high level these SBA loan programs and NAR's advocacy on them, what we've done and what we're doing going forward. So as you hopefully know, the two new programs that were created by the CARES Act were the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance Grant. Paycheck Protection Program provides loans for small businesses, independent contractors, and the self-employed and sole proprietors to cover payroll costs or lost income, over an 8-week period. We learned yesterday from the SBA that for independent contractors, which is where there's been, I think, the most confusion or just gray area on this, they're eligible for these loans based on their Form 1040 Schedule C and their Form 1099 MISC that they file with the IRS, and that's the 2019 Form 1040 Schedule C. They're eligible to have up to 8 weeks of their portion of the Form 1040 Schedule C net profit from year 2019 forgiven under the loan program. Small businesses with employees can apply for up to 250% of their average monthly payroll costs for the year before, and they are required to put 75% of those loans toward payroll costs, keep their employee levels at 100% from pre-COVID, and use the remainder of the loan for an eligible use, which is payroll, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities in order to see their loans forgiven at the end of the 8-week period. This is something that a lot of the confusion we're hearing is coming from the actual lenders themselves. This loan program is administered directly through SBA lenders, and Some of them are misinformed. We've heard from some members that were told, oh, my lender said an independent contractor couldn't apply for this loan, or my lender said that you can't apply for this program if you have an NAIC, which is a North America Industry Classification System code that begins with 53. Well, we've been talking with Senator Collins from the very beginning of this loan program, and we have to thank all of our realtor associations, including New Jersey, and all of you members who helped us advocate to get specific language included in the CARES Act that said that independent contractors can apply and qualify for these loans and their forgiveness. So we know when a lender says you're not able to apply for this because you're an independent contractor without employees, that's wrong. So we are working with the ABA, the American Bankers Association, to try to come up with solutions to this. We want them to communicate to their membership the actual guidelines for this program to clear up the confusion. And we are really ready and willing to provide any resources we can to them because it's our members that are being turned away. So frankly, I'll do the work for ABA if it means that our members stop getting needlessly turned away from applying for these loans. The other loan program that we have is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And what the CARES Act did was create this $10,000 advance grant within the program. EIDLs already existed. So that program was something that I would say had a bit of a smoother start because there just already was infrastructure surrounding it within the SBA. With the EIDL Advance Grant, initially you were able to apply for up to $10,000 in advance funds that was supposed to be dispersed within 3 days. And this is something you apply for directly through the SBA. They have a really easy to work with streamlined application form that you can access. This and really all of the FAQs and links to applications and then where to find an SBA lender, you can all find that on NAR's FAQ on our coronavirus page dedicated to SBA programs. So with the EIDL Advance Grant, that is forgivable if you use it for an eligible use. That includes payroll costs, mortgage, rent, utilities, and debts incurred before February 15th of this year. And if you use it for an eligible use, you can have it forgiven. The questions that we typically are getting from our members is, can I get both a PPP and an EIDL advance grant? Yes, you can. However, if you do, then the advance grant amount is subtracted from the PPP forgiveness amount. So I said that the EIDL advance grant amount was for $10,000. However, if you applied last week, you may have received a message from the SBA that said that they are now conditioning that advance grant amount on the number of employees. So you can get $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. NAR, the reason behind this is because frankly, the program is quickly running out of funding. We had $349 billion funded for the PPP program and $10 billion funded for these advanced grants. And they are forecasting that that funding could be exhausted by mid next week, possibly earlier. So NAR reached out to Congress already on this. We are working to advocate for additional huge sums of funding. I think the number being thrown around right now is $250 billion, but it could be higher than that. We are really pushing for Congress to get this done. They don't need to come back to DC and be in session to do this. So we are hopeful that this is something that could be taken care of by the end of this week or early next week to ensure that the SBA has the funds to help the highest number of businesses that are being impacted by COVID-19. That is very high level and very fast information, but I know you guys all want to hear directly from the SBA. So I think with that, I'll give it a pause and turn it over to John or back to you, Jared.
Sure. Erin, actually, we just had a quick question come in. A member is asking whether or not the 2018 tax returns can be used instead of the 2019 if they have not yet been filed.
No. If you haven't filed your 2019 taxes, you're going to need to fill out your Form 1040 Schedule C and use that for the application. This is new from the guidance we got yesterday afternoon that provided a little more clarity on how the program will apply to independent contractors. But I was on a webinar before this, and someone asked the same question. And when I said, well, you're going to have to fill it out and use that, she was like, well, I might as well file my taxes then. And I was like, yeah. You might as well file your taxes then. So yes, you will have to have your 2019 Form 1040 Schedule C.
Great. If you could just hang with us, and we'll probably have a lot more questions for you, Erin. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. John, why don't I turn it over to you?
Okay, good. Good morning, actually, good afternoon, everyone. Jared, good to see you. Angela, Erin, great intro and start for the SBA. The SBA does have several programs, and EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that's the first one we came out with. We are now seeing that some folks are getting some of the proceeds from their loans and the advances. So Erin touched on it briefly. We did come out a few weeks ago with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. It was touted at $10,000 per business, comes out to about $1,000 per employee. So you're going to get an email once your loan is ready to be dispersed into your account. There will not be a phone call from an SBA rep saying, hey, check your account. If you get an email that looks like a blue screen and it discusses loan or advance, quickly thereafter, hopefully that afternoon or the next day, you check your account and you might find your disbursement in your account. So let's see, Jared, are you working the slides? Do I have the ability to move these slides?
Billy's gonna move them for you, so just tell him when you want to move
perfect.
on.
Thank you, Billy. So this is the first, this is our administrator. Every state is eligible to apply for every small business in every state can apply for EIDL grants and the PPP program. Now, there are some businesses that will be ineligible. For this program, the economic injury, it is handled by the Small Business Administration. So it is in fact a loan, and there is criteria to be approved. So some people will not meet the criteria. All right, next slide, please. So who can apply? These are just a few small businesses, small agricultural co-ops, and most nonprofits, some of the nonprofits. Anyone that was economically impacted by this COVID disaster can apply. That's pretty much every small business. Businesses that service those businesses, anything in a linear fashion. If you had something to do with helping a small business succeed, you're most likely eligible to apply. Next slide, please. Again, this is a loan, so credit history. That's the number one reason why people are being declined for this. However, if you did apply for an economic injury disaster loan and were denied, you can apply for the advance. We call it advance, but it's technically a grant. There is no declining for the grants, and that's up to $10,000 per business. That's a max, and it comes out to about $1,000 per employee. So for the sole proprietors or the independent contractors, you can apply for that. It's one person, or if you're a sole proprietor, it's you and your partner. Repayment, again, another criteria for getting this approved. The SBA, they want to make sure that you have the ability to repay this loan. And you've got to be working in the state to which you're applying. Next slide, Billy. For EIDL, the max loan is $2 million, 3.75% interest rate. If you're a private nonprofit, 2.75, 30 years. This is a loan. What can you use this loan for? You can use it for anything business related, pay fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, any bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. Please understand, if you apply for the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the PPP, we have not discussed PPP, that's coming up here in a few minutes, you cannot use the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and PPP to cover your payroll. So make sure everyone understands that. The next slide, Billy. This is a loan. Again, any loan over the amount of $25,000 requires collateral. If you don't have collateral, It's not a reason for declination, but you definitely want to talk to one of the loan counselors from the SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance and explain why you don't have collateral if you're looking for a small business loan for the disaster over $25,000. Next slide, please. Who can apply? Basically, any small business in New Jersey can apply. There are some businesses that cannot apply, and I think most folks know what businesses those are. We got word today that one of the changes, gambling, it was in the past, SBA, if your profits amounted to 30% or more, you were ineligible. That number has changed to 50%. So for the ones that can apply, basically hotels, recreational facilities, fishing, charter boats, any manufacturing, sports vendors, the list is really long. You have to have a physical presence in the state, which pretty much is a moot point because all states are, they can apply. Okay, next slide, please. This is working capital loans are different than other SBA loans. The EIDL loans will come directly from the U.S. Treasury. To apply, this is not really a good email address. So I need to update this, but disasterloan.sba.gov, add a /ELA, Echo Lima Alpha. You will access that portal for both the economic injury disaster loan and the EIDL advance. There's no cost to apply. Listen, I get emails a lot. People are saying, why does it cost? Well, you can pay a company to file for you, but the SBA will never charge you to apply. There's no obligation to take the loan if offered. So if you apply for an EIDL loan and you decide you don't need it, you can always decline it. Next slide, please. Basic filing requirements. These are some of the documents that you'll have to have ready to upload. Depending on your credit score, if you know you might have unstable credit, but you might meet the threshold, there is a credit score. I don't know what that number is. You might have to have some additional requirements met. So I believe the next slide has additional requirements. So next slide, please. So complete copy of federal income tax. And just like Erin said, 2019, they're looking for that. If you don't have that, you need to definitely speak to either the bank or the lender, the loan officer for the EIDL. They want the most recent federal income tax return, a year-end profit and loss statement. So if you think you're going to need additional filing information, please have those documents handy to upload. I believe that's the last slide for EIDL. Next slide, please. Nonprofits, there are a few nonprofits. I'll read those out real quick. If you're not one of these three groups, you're not eligible. So if you are a 501c3, a 501c19, or tribal 31b2c, you're eligible. Okay, next slide, please. Ineligible, there's a list of those. The gambling concerns, that has been changed from 1/3 to 50%. And if you deal with the marijuana industry, it doesn't matter. It's illegal in the federal government, so you're not eligible to apply. Next slide, please. Okay, how to apply. That is the correct email address, the website, disasterloan.sba.gov/ELA. We're saying it's 21 days from the time you hit submit to when you get funds dispersed, but that's not really accurate. We're seeing that it's taken about 4 weeks. You can mail this. I highly discourage you to mail this application because if there's an error that's going to be returned to you via mail, then you've got to correct whatever the error is. I recommend you do this electronically. There's a phone number, 800-659-2955. You might get a call center rep who will probably take your name and number and have someone, you'll be told someone will get back to you. The information I'm getting, it's pretty much that. You're not going to speak to someone. The folks that are at the customer service center are overwhelmed. Every state in the country is applying for this. All right, next slide. I believe that's it. Then we'll go into PPP. Again, we have our resource partners. You can go to www.sba.gov local assistance if you want to talk to some of our resource partners and talk about how to repair credit history down the road. We do have SCORE counselors, small business development centers, women's business center, and the Veterans Business Outreach Center, and local chambers of commerce to provide some assistance. Jared, I do think that's the last slide for EIDL. So Billy, next slide. Again, submit as soon as possible. This is a sheer number of applicants is just overwhelming. Next slide. We'll move right into PPP. Here we go. This is the latest one. Erin nailed it with her introductory remarks. This is a congressionally mandated $349 billion disaster assistance program. Next slide, please. So where do you find a lender? So unlike the EIDL, you will deal directly with a bank or a lending institution. You will not deal with the SBA at all. The SBA only provides the funds to the bank to disperse into your account. The website sba.gov/paycheck protection/find. That's updated. That gives you a list of banks that are participating. However, not all are accepting applications, or they might not be willing to work with non-customers. I advise everyone who goes to this, go to that site, put your zip code in, a list of banks will pop up. Call the banks, ask that person who answers the phone, are you accepting PPP? And if so, are you accepting those from non-customers? What can the funds be used for? 8 weeks of payroll costs, including benefits. It can also be used to pay interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. So Erin brought up sole proprietors and independent contractors. Before April 10th, they were told by banks they were not eligible, but that opened up on April 10th. So now sole proprietors and independent contractors have the ability to apply for PPP. Next slide, please. Tells you it's $10 million, interest rate is 1%, 6 months deferred, loan maturity 2 years. No collateral requirements, no personal guarantees, no borrower or lender fees will be paid to the SBA from any bank. Program is available through June 30th, 2020, or until that fund is expended. $349 billion. So I don't have the numbers updated today, but as of yesterday, this is old data. 242 billion of that 349 were already allocated. I know that number's up. I just don't have a good number. Next slide, please. I know we want to get into the Q&A, so I'm trying to breeze through this. Okay, so this is the key to this this loan, disaster loan program. If you use the disbursement proceeds to pay 75% for payroll, this loan's going to be forgiven. So there's some math that you have to follow for finding out how much money you're entitled to. So you want to get the number of your employees, add up all their payroll, and you can include their benefits, childcare, vacation, but it cannot exceed $100,000 per employee. And then you multiply that by all your employees, divide by 12, multiply by 2.5, and that comes up with a number that you're eligible to apply for PPP. If you go to treasury.gov, there'll be examples of how you figure that out. The bank will not do this math for you. You will attest on your application that your payroll numbers are accurate. It's different for seasonal, and if you have part-time employees. In New Jersey, there's a lot of seasonal businesses, and they have employed a lot of non-US citizens. The key for here, you've got to have your primary resident has got to be in the United States. Otherwise, those employees, part-time or full-time, cannot be included in your calculations. Who's eligible to apply? Small businesses with 500 or fewer employees. There are a few that have more than 500, but you know who you are. Some nonprofits, vet organizations, and faith-based, sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed persons can all apply for PPP. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a loan. It's a 1% 2-year loan. It will be forgiven if 75% of whatever proceeds you get are used for payroll within 8 weeks from the day you get the money dispersed into your account. The whole intent is paycheck protection. The government wants you to get your workforce back on the payroll. So if on February 15th you had 10 employees, when you get this, your disbursement for PPP, the idea is you have 10 employees. It doesn't have to be the same 10. It can be 10 new employees, but the salary levels must be the same. There is about a 25% flexibility in that salary level. But you've got to use 75% for payroll. Okay, and again, whatever you had employment numbers February 15th. For the seasonal, if you didn't have anyone other than you and your partner, that's something you discuss with the bank, and they'll work with you to figure out what months you're going to use and to help you do your math and figure out how much you're eligible to apply for. To qualify for the loan forgiveness, full-time employee headcount must be maintained. So if you had, again, 10 employees, some states have stay-at-home orders. This might be a sticking point. If your people cannot, work from home, you might have some issues with this. Salaries and wages must be maintained. You have until June 30th to restore full-time employment and salary level changes made between February 15th and April 26th. If you use this loan, 75% for payroll, it will be forgiven. If it's anything less than that, it will be a loan. It's a 1% loan. Next slide, please. This is key. People ask me all the time, what are payroll costs? That's 75%. This bullet here, these 5 or 6 bullets, that's what counts as payroll. You can read it: salary, wages, commissions, benefits, and they include vacation, parental, family, medical, sick leave, retirement benefits, group health care, and insurance premiums. The last bullet there, what about sole proprietors and independent contractors? What defines their payroll costs? It's wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment. And how do you declare that? Well, you have to, however you file your taxes, whatever forms are appropriate, banks will ask you to verify. And some people are saying, look, I don't have what they're asking for. You have to have some documentation to prove that you did receive payroll from this business. So if you're unable to do so, then I would be very careful how you file this, because you will certify and attest that everything you're submitting is accurate and true. All right, next slide, please. I believe that might be one more. That's it. I know there's lots of questions. I got some questions yesterday, and a lot were dealing with sole proprietors. So one question I got, what address should be used? Branch office, broker office, home office? I would use whatever address you use to file your taxes. So that's what I would do. The next question, I don't have a business checking account and or LLC EIN. Can I apply? Can an S Corp apply? Doesn't matter how you structure your business. If you're a small business owner, you can apply. If you have employees, you can apply. Sole proprietor, independent contractors. Independent contractors. So a small business should not include independent contractors when they're doing their methodology to determine the payroll for their employees. Independent contractors can apply for PPP by themselves. Next question, can an agent who has been in the business for a little over a year with only one closed transaction but a lot of business-related expenses qualify for PPP, and approximately how much could said agent receive? That depends on how much your payroll expenses for you were last year. So you're going to take that. It's one person. It should be relatively easy. Figure out your monthly, your aggregate, divide by 12, multiply by 2.5, and that's going to tell you what you can apply for. Can I apply for PPP and unemployment? That's one question. Both PPP and EIDL. Do I have to do one first? First part of that, can I apply for PPP and unemployment? Federal government, SBA, I can talk to you about these disaster loans. I don't know anything about unemployment. I think you should look at nj.gov, talk to someone that can discuss the unemployment. I don't know if there's any ramifications by using PPP and unemployment. Yes, you can use PPP and EIDL, economic injury disaster loan. You cannot take both and use them both for payroll. If you do, If you get idle, you can use it for non-payroll. That's fine. Understand that idle is a 3.75% loan payable in 30 years. If you get the grant, the idle advance, you can use it for whatever you want. PPP, the realistic strategic approach would be apply for all, take PPP, use 75% for payroll, and then that will be a forgivable grant. Do I have to do one first? No. Okay, look, so the banks that are doing PPP, some are better than others, some are fast, some have money dispersed into the applicant's file, whatever account this person set up within 24 to 48 hours. Some banks are working on backlogs. We've sent our lending relations specialists folks. We've got 3 in New Jersey. They are assisting the local banks trying to get the backlog for PPP cleared. So Erin brought it up, $349 billion. This fund will run out, and I'm not going to make a prediction or projection, but when $349 billion have been expended, unless there's another congressional mandated budget for this, I don't know the way forward. Next question. Can I apply for PPP for my LLC as a small business for my employees and also as an independent contractor for my own payroll? So I pulled up this, I brought this out. I wanted to talk about LLCs because there seems to be a lot of questions from this group on LLCs, and I want to get the ruling. One second. Okay, so I'm going to read this, Jared, real quick. I know there's a lot of questions. So for LLC, okay, so this is taken from the SBA's interim rule. I'm reading it. Forgive me, but I want to make sure I get the correct information out. All right, if you are a partner in a partnership, you may not submit a separate PPP loan application for yourself as a self-employed individual. Instead, the self-employed income of general active partners may be reported as a payroll cost up to $100,000 annualized on a PPP loan application filed by or on behalf of the partnership. Partnerships are eligible for PPP loans under the Act, and the administrator has determined in consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury that limiting a partnership and its partners and an LLC filing taxes as a partnership to one PPP loan is necessary to help that as many eligible borrowers as possible obtain PPP loans before the statutory deadline of 30 June 2020. This limitation will allow lenders to more quickly process applications and lower the burdens on applying for partnerships/partners. The administrator has further determined that permitting partners to apply as self-employed individuals would create unnecessary confusion regarding which entity the partner or the partnership applies for partner and LLC member income, and would generate loan proceeds, use coordination, and allocation issues. Okay, I know that's the best answer I can give you for LLCs. We do not have an SOP. Normally, when something like this happens, the SBA would have a standard operating procedure, which we would share and train the banks, the lenders on the program. Since we don't have an SOP, we're going off the Treasury's FAQs and our interim rule. Okay, another question. Insurance payments covered, yes. So just so you understand what, again, I'm gonna read from the rule what payroll cost, what the definition is. Let me find it. One second. Okay, I'm just getting there. Taking a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I want to read this out so everyone. 2F, 1 second. Okay, What qualifies as payroll cost? Payroll costs consist of compensation to employees. Now this is key, whose principal place of residence is the United States. So if you find yourself a business owner and you hire, a lot of the shore places have a lot of seasonal employees that come from other countries. If their principal place of residence is not the United States, can't count them in as payroll. So payroll, compensation to employees whose principal place of residence is the United States in the form of salary, wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips or the equivalent, based on employer records of past tips, or in the absence of such records, a reasonable good faith employer estimate of such tips, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, like severance pay, payment for the provision of employee benefits consisting of group health care coverage, including insurance premiums and retirement, and then also payment of state and local taxes assessed on compensation of employees. For independent contractors and sole proprietors, again, wages, commissions, incomes, or net earnings from self-employment or similar compensation. Okay, let me get the next question. Sorry. What is covered and what has to be paid back? What are acceptable business expenses? Food, supplies, medical insurance, mortgage, utilities on a private residence, MLS fees, advertising fees. So what is covered and what is paid back? I'm guessing that if it's not in the payroll cost, so you can use 25% of PPP to cover, like this question. I guess if you buy food, supplies for your business, you can use that. But 75%, if you want this to be forgiven, it's got to be used for your compensation to your employees, or if you are a sole proprietor, independent contractor, for your wage, your commission, your incomes, net earnings from self-employment. The other 25% can be used for these other expenses. So if you use less than 75%, it's going to be a loan, you're going to pay it back. Understand, depending on the size of this loan, it might be substantial. It is 2 years. How long from application being filed will it take to get approved and funded? How do I check application status? Will I receive confirmation information when my application is received? That is a great question, 3 parts, and it depends on the bank you apply with. So let me start that. How long from application being filed will it take to get approved and funded? The normal process, you file, it's 8 minutes. The Paperwork Reduction Act went into effect. You apply for this online, it's about 8 minutes to fill in that information. A lot of people are sending these applications straight to banks without contacting them. Please do not do that. Your personal information, you're compromising or potentially compromising a lot of your personal information. We get packages, applications. I don't know why they're sent to us. We destroy them. I don't want your information. I think it's prudent on you to contact the bank and ask them if they're accepting, and then say, my name is whatever your name is, here's my application, find out where they want you to send it to. How long does it take to get approved? So the process, once the bank gets it, they're going to go through, make sure that they're good with it, submit it, another form to the SBA for the funds. The SBA, it's first in, first out. There is no stack of the SBA. They're not saying, I want to do these first. It's first in, first out. Once the SBA has the funds released to the bank has 10 calendar days to put the disbursement into your account. Some banks are not waiting the 10 days. I don't know why they gave them 10 days. Some banks do it automatically, immediately. Maybe they want to get their commission. I don't know. I can tell you that some banks are operating faster than others. Some banks, I've got the entire 3 lending relations specialists in our office working with bank CEOs and presidents, trying to help with the backlog. We've got one bank that's got 600 applications, PPP, that folks have been submitting since April 3rd, and we still have not had those forwarded to the SBA. So we're working. Please have patience. We're doing everything we can, and we're trying to educate the bank as quickly as we can. Again, some are better than others. Second part of that, how do I check application status? contact the bank to which you applied. Call them, email them, text them, get the loan officer. I wouldn't bother them too much because they are, it's like a lot of applications. But I think when you apply, just ask them, when do you expect to submit this to SBA? When do you expect disbursement into my account? And can I call you back in a few days for an update? I think that would be good. Will I receive confirmation information when my application is received? I would hope that the bank would reach back to you. I can't speak for them all. Some are doing it, some are not. I understand that as long as 75% is used for payroll costs, the loan becomes a grant, but as an independent contractor with no employees, does my gross commission count towards the 75%? What is the process for loan forgiveness? So again, payroll costs, it goes back to the sole proprietors and the independent contractors. Let me go back to that so I'll read it one more time. Just so everyone is clear. For the payroll costs. 1 second, please. Let me get back to it.
Hey, John, while you're looking at that, we just had a question come in, which I think could be addressed while you're answering that.
Okay.
Is commission to yourself count as payroll?
So unless if it's not in there, I would say, yeah, commission is, but before I give you a definitive, I want to pull this up for payroll costs. And Jared, I'm only searching because I don't want people to say, well, he said this. I want to make sure that if it's in the definition, okay. All right, 1 second. Okay, so the question was commission?
So we just had a question come in as you're looking at that, asking us if commission to yourself count as payroll.
You know what, it's not in the final or the interim rule. So if you want to send me that question, my email, and everyone can send me questions. If you have questions after this that aren't answered, my email is my name. It's john.blackstock@sba.gov.
And I also want to remind everybody that the whole presentation, including your slides, John, will be made available to them after the presentation.
Okay, I don't have an answer for that last one. So the person who asked that, please send me an email and I'll send that up to our legal and get some sort of ruling. Okay, I'll get to the next question. How is the amount received calculated? Is it based on 2018 or 2019 tax filings? What if you haven't filed 2019 yet? They want you to file 2019 tax, but here's the methodology to determine. And I've written this out, so I'm going to read this. Forgive me, Jared, and everyone else on this. To determine how much you can borrow. So this is for non-seasonal. This is for like a small business that has folks year-round. You aggregate your payroll costs from the last 12 months for employees whose principal place of residence is the United States. You subtract any compensation paid to employee in excess of an annual salary of $100,000, and that includes independent contractors. Calculate the average monthly payroll cost, so you divide the total of your employees, not to exceed $100,000, by 12. You take that number, multiply it by 2.5, and that's the number that you can apply for your EIDL. Now, The bank is not going to go back and check your number of employees. They're not going to check the salaries, but they can't exceed $100,000 per employee. And then you apply. So after you get your PPP, the funds dispersed, how do you prove that 75% were used on payroll? Well, they're going to look at records from February 15th, whatever your employment numbers were, they want you to get those people back on the payroll. And you have until June 30th to do so. Does it have to be the same person? Nope. It can be the same number, different people. Let's see, next question.
Hey, John, let me jump in real quick. I want to address a couple things that have come in over the last couple of weeks. And one of the big issues that our independent contractors are finding is that they don't have an EIN number established. We already addressed that. You can apply with the Social Security number. I also want to point out to the members that we've been finding that the community banks, the local banks, have been more inclined to write the PPP loans to the members, to the independent contractors. And I've identified at least Republic Bank, who contacted us. They're very eager in writing these loans to the membership. You don't have to have an established business relationship with them. And also Cross River Bank is another bank that has said that they are very eager to write these loans to the independent contractor. So I just want to let people know that.
Yeah, there are a few banks that are openly accepting from everyone. Basically, there's some that just said, look, I'm not going to deal with non-customers. That's their policies. We cannot dictate who they work with, but you're right. So if you do know a bank's accepting, please share that within your network. Get that information out. So let's see, another question. What's the best way to calculate monthly income? Well, hopefully whatever you pay your employees, there's salary, commission, compensation, tips, however you do your bookkeeping to calculate your monthly income. But then you take that and you divide it, you multiply it by the number of employees you have, divide it by 12, multiply by 2.5. If you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor, take a look at how much money you made last year. If it exceeds 100,000, cap it off at $100,000. Apply for that. Use that. Take that, divide by 12, multiply by 2.5, and that's your number. I just became a licensed real estate agent in 2020. Congratulations. Can I still apply? Yes, you can, but they're going to look at, actually, maybe not, because they want to go, as long as you were working by February 15th and you have some sort of income, but that might be tough for you. That might be tough because they're going to want to go back. You're not a seasonal employee. For you, I would say take a look at, if you're still working, look at the EIDL grant and then look and see what New Jersey's doing. Is there a minimum amount that we must have made in 2018 to qualify for this program? Not at all. But it will determine that minimum you made in your calculation will determine how much your max PPP application will have. What if I hired someone who has only been on the payroll for a few weeks? Can I count them? If they were on the payroll by February 15th, absolutely. What if I hired someone, okay, I just answered that. Can I apply if it's just me? I have no employees and I am not a brokerage. Are you a sole proprietor or independent contractor? If so, yes. And Jared, the last one I got, the 16th, can a husband and wife who file jointly both apply for PPP, or is it one application between the two of them? It's one per business. So if the husband has a business, the wife has, well, hold on. If the husband and wife have multiple businesses, you would roll up all those businesses into one loan. You can only have one PPP loan. So, but you file jointly.
But as independent contractors,
you filed jointly. So they filed jointly. So if they are two businesses, they filed jointly, then they both can apply. But if it's one business, maybe they're divorced, they filed joint. Yeah, I'm going to say you can apply for one loan.
Okay.
But
so John, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Send me an email and I will forward that up because I don't want to do any interpreting the final rule, the interim rule.
So we have a question that came in. If they have an open application for PPP for their admin, who they're still paying for, should they also apply for themselves?
Okay, so I understand they've got a PPP for an admin.
Yep, who
I
they're
don't know
still
what that-
paying. So they're saying, I have an open application for PPP for my admin whom I am still paying. Would I or should I also apply myself?
I don't understand what an admin is, and is this an independent?
Administrative person. So they have an employee working for them that is their admin person. As an independent contractor, they have hired one person to work for them.
So that's the independent contractor can apply by him or herself, but if they've got a subcontractor and they're counting, see, that's tough. I don't know. That to me is illegal. That's trying to, for me, it's not spelled out in the interim rule, and I don't want to give any bad guidance. So whoever asks that, John.Blackstock, SBA.gov, send me an email.
Okay. The next question we have, we're seeing a lot of, how do I get this loan forgiven?
Yeah, that's a good question. Use 75% of the proceeds to pay payroll cost. If you don't, then it's a 1% loan. So use 75% for payroll cost. If you're an independent contractor, that you're going to get a smaller amount, but it's 75% used for, if it's used for your payroll, compensation, wages, tips, it's going to be forgiven. Keep records though. Everyone should keep good records. So whoever your bookkeeper is, your accountant, make sure that person is taking good notes for you so you can track down and show exactly the bank. This is what I use this funds for.
All right, so John, why don't we repeat something that you did say earlier, and it was in your slides, I believe. Commission, being paid commission is actually a way to establish that you can, that is your payroll. So you can apply if you're being paid a commission to yourself.
Let me get this real quick. You might be right. I'm starting to blur and I don't have all this committed to memory, but before I tell you yes or no, and it was probably PPP. 1 second, I'm pulling that slide up.
It was in your PPP loan payroll costs.
Okay, so let me, come on, hurry up. Payroll costs, salary, wages, commissions, or tips. There it is. For independent contractors, sole proprietors, that includes wages, commissions, income, or net earnings. So yes, thank you for that. And that person who asked that, you need not send me an email. I will respond to you, but you can count commissions, absolutely.
All right, another question, John. Once we have an application number, how do we check on its status?
All right, so we're talking PPP? I would say,
they didn't specify PPP, but I'm guessing yes, it's PPP.
okay, so PPP, check with your bank, whoever you applied for. For the EIDL or the EIDL grant, you can call the 800 number, but I'm being told you're not going to get the answer you want. You're most likely going to get an email, a form email saying, hey, we're processing, get ready, check your account. Those proceeds are in your account quickly thereafter.
Great. How about are commissions paid to our agents part of the PPP or just the salaried W-2 employees? I know the answer to that. I'm sure you could answer that one.
Yep. No, you can count the commissions as part of your calculation. It's part of the compensation package.
What if there are multiple Schedule Cs per return? Is this treated differently, or do we add all gross receipts?
As long as it doesn't go over $100,000 per person, I think you can add them.
Okay. I've applied for the coronavirus economic injury disaster loan for my business and have yet to hear back for over a week now. Is there a timeline, or can I check for updates using my application number?
So the application number will become the loan number. I could tell you, you can call 800-659-2955. I don't have confidence that you're going to speak to somebody, but if you applied in only 1 week, it's going to take a few more weeks. We are seeing the coming out, getting approved. It's about 4 weeks. I know that's not what you want to hear. I'm sorry, but it's just the sheer volume of folks accessing this program. This is unprecedented, the number.
Okay, here's a kind of a complex question that might need to be emailed to you, but let's give it a shot. I am
Sure.
a real estate broker and a landlord. I applied for the PPP and only entered the amount I had earned from real estate sales. When
Okay,
I
good.
Okay, so when I applied for the EIDL, I only entered the amount that I earned from my rental properties. Will the EIDL still be subtracted from the PPP?
So rental property, I know that they're not eligible for PPP if you're doing some rental properties. For EIDL, it sounds like it was a loan and not the grant. He could use that, or she could use that for non-payroll. If he uses it for payroll, it will be subtracted from PPP.
Okay. So for the grant as a sole proprietor, the max I would be granted is $2,000.
If there's two people that you're claiming, yes. Otherwise, if it's one person, maybe it's you and your partner, you and your wife, or you and your husband, two people, yes. It comes out to about $1,000 per employee.
Okay. I have a small brokerage office, no employees, just independent contractors. I also don't pay myself a regular payroll check. Which loan/grant is the best for me to cover my lost income and my monthly overhead commitments?
So you could apply, so your independent contractors, you can't count them. They're going to go off on their own and do PPP if they choose. You can't count them. You could go PPP sole proprietor, but you don't get a paycheck. You get a draw. You have to have some sort of compensation to make this worth your while. You do have overhead, so PPP can be used for interest on your mortgage, your rent, and your utilities. But as long as 75% are used for salary or payroll purposes, it will be forgiven. If not, that will be a 1% loan and 2 years maturity. That's one option. You can apply for the EIDL advance. You'll probably get $1,000 max since it's just one person, or if there's a partner, $2,000. And you can apply for the EIDL loan, but it's going to be a small amount just because it's one or two people.
Great. I just want to address one thing that was brought to my attention. In regards to Republic Bank, they are asking that the agent or independent contractor open up their a business account with them. So that is one of the criteria that they are asking for. We're going to help try to identify, using the New Jersey Bankers Association, other community banks, and try to identify what criteria they have in order for you to open up these accounts or to apply for these PPP loans. So every bank
Yeah.
is going to be different.
Everyone's different, and it's just shouldn't have to have an account with them. They should be taking, should is the operative word, applications, and they have the ability to sell these on the secondary market. Maybe they're trying to build some loyalty, trust with the folks in the time of need, saying, hey, look, we came to you, we want your business. Maybe that's their tact. I don't sit on the board of any bank, so I can't speak for any of them.
Right. Thank you, John. Can the PPP be used to pay health insurance costs?
Yes.
If you are a self-employed, do you count yourself as an employee for the PPP?
If you're self-employed, yeah, single employee, one person, you can apply.
Great. And we're going to wrap up. We're going to have two more questions, and we're going to wrap up. Most of us are independent contractors that have very little income, if any, since March. How will we qualify for forgiveness if we have very little income for the 8 weeks following the receipt of proceeds?
Yeah, so that's tough. So independent contractors, you got to go back, you do your math, figure out what your monthly aggregate, and then going forward from once the moment those funds are dispersed in your account, you need to start paying yourself 75% of whatever you get within an 8-week period to be forgiven.
Right.
And you can use the other 25% for non-payroll costs.
So here's a good question. Do we pay taxes on this grant?
I don't think you do. I don't know. That's not been addressed. It's not in the interim rule, and I didn't see it I didn't look for it specifically, but if you go to treasury.gov, type in PPP FAQs, it might have some sort of tax requirement in there.
Great.
I don't
John,
know.
one more time, can you give that your email address? If anybody has a specific question, they could email you direct.
Sure. It's my name. It's John, John, Blackstock, the color Blackstock, STOCK, at SBA.gov.
Wonderful. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for participating today. I hope we got through a lot of your questions. Another thing I do want to point out, we had a lot of questions coming in about the PUA program. That's the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Act. That webinar is going to be scheduled for you on Friday from 11:30 to 12:30. We have arranged for the Department of Labor Commissioner to answer all your questions. An email to register for that webinar will be going out sometime this afternoon. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I hope everybody please stay safe, stay well, and we will be with you again. See you Friday. Thanks
Thanks.
everybody for participating.